All right. Hello, hello, hello. And let's see if this is working. Okay. Hi, folks. Welcome to Shibari Studies, Consent Dojo. I am your Auntie Midori. And hold on here. I'm going to move the little chat box over here. Okay. I am making an attempt today. This is our second meeting, and I am getting used to a not Zoom platform. So I am using my laptop to record this, and I'm using my phone to look at the chats in the live feed. All right. There is going to be a little bit of a delay, so you know. And if you all will say hi to me in the live chat over here, that would be most fantastic. So let me see who all I see and know that there's going to be a bit of a delay, all right? And tell me hi and where you're from. And it'd be lovely if those of you who were here in the last Consent Dojo could tell me that as well. Because in the last Consent Dojo, I made some assignments. So had a little conversation we did, and I made an assignment, and I want to see if anyone engaged in that. So briefly, it's to observe how many times a day we have the potential for a consent opportunity, right? And if anyone did that, I would love to hear from you. Oh, hello, France. Hello, London. Excellent. There's also Berlin in there. Oh, from Damascus, Syria. Wonderful. And for those of you who are new to Shibari study, please check out the recordings of the recent Consent Dojo so you'll know what the homework is, and I still want you to do it, as well as the history class. All right. Hello, Finland. Excellent. Florida. Excellent. Did any of y'all attend the first one? All right. So, one of these days, I want to host a live conversation, maybe even not recorded. I'll talk to the Shibari study team and see if we can have it, like a deep discussion around consent. But we're going to be covering some Auntie Midori advice kind of stuff. All right. So, I hesitate to call this a class. And I like calling it a dojo as a place where we're going to toss each other around and toss around ideas and thoughts and opinions. I could have also called it my living room. But discussing about consent. See, we can all try to teach consent, but it really is an ongoing discussion. It is an ongoing discussion in ourselves, with our partners, with the people around us, and in the society that we live in. Unfortunately, discussion around consent and the genuine concern around consent is a relatively modern phenomenon. But so often, the way that humans and power and society happens, consent or mutual agreement of what it is to happen has been rare. So as a species, we are in so many ways sophisticated and yet so many ways in development. So if you find yourself frustrated around or baffled around or internally conflicted or feeling like you don't have enough information or have made mistakes around consent, let's be kind to ourselves, because this is actually a cultural bleeding edge. It is a new way in which we're thinking about human interaction. I know here we are in Shibari study, and you're thinking that we're going to be talking about how to have consent in play, but we can't really talk about how do we have consent in our kinky play unless we're thinking about how are we engaging with mutuality, and agency, and boundary in our everyday life as well as societal assumptions. Big thinking, right? And in some sense, I'll hear people saying, well, what's so hard about consent? You just have to agree on a thing going forward. If only it were that easy. All right. So last time, I gave the homework of observe over the course of a day how many opportunities for consent creating and opportunities for advocating yourself exist. Consent creating. I like to think around words and language, and for those of you who are familiar with me and like my office hours over at Patreon, you know that I go into the nitty-gritty of language, but I think that's relevant. We talk about giving consent. That makes it almost seem like there is a thing that I have that I will give you, right? And I think that's a wrong way of thinking about it, or at least not a helpful way of thinking about it. Consent, or so I'm told, has roots in romantic languages of sensing or feeling together. So I've been told, together to feel, right? So if I have a consent, and I could either give it or withhold it, that's really transactional. And the other person, it might be that you have this consent, this is your consent, and that for me, either I need to persuade it out of you or I need to take consent, right? So let's think about it. Taking and giving consent. It also makes it sound like a person who is taking it now takes it away from the other. I know that's not what it's meant, but when we look at how we use the language and the assumptions in it, what if instead we created consent? Also, in the language of giving and taking consent around kink, I think there's oftentimes the assumption of consent is either to be given or withheld from the person who is receiving rope or bottoming or submitting. By the way, receiving rope, bottoming, and submitting are three different things that can happen at once, but it can also happen separately. All right. So whether you are receiving rope, bottoming, or submitting, okay, and the distinction on that, we can talk about that another time, or stop by my office hour and I will untangle desire for you. Okay. So we tend to think of the person receiving rope. This is Shibari's study, and we are talking about rope bondage. The idea that it's the person who's receiving rope, and the person who's casting rope is the one taking. Well, isn't the person casting rope also entitled to taking part in their own consent and self-advocacy as well? Or let's translate that to, how about everybody in the scene? But somebody might ask, well, if the person's casting rope, or topping or dominating, they already know what they want. And therefore, they're in charge. Well, is it so? All right. So I train a lot of people who are starting off or refreshing their kink journey, reprospecting their kink journey. And this is something that I hear where a person ended up topping or casting rope because they were persuaded by the person bottoming, and maybe they weren't wholeheartedly into it in the moment. In fact, maybe they even didn't want to. So consent happens on all sides of the individuals participating. So what if we created consent together instead of taking and giving? And if we don't talk about taking and giving, there's never a diminishment. There's never a diminishment. So there is always a full capacity that I possess and that you possess in creating limitations and agreement, always full capacity. Okay. Last time I gave the assignment around noticing opportunities for consent creating, and I used the example of the grocery store. Any of y'all remember the grocery store? If you remember it, pop it into the comments, all right? So here's the example, and I intentionally made it into something very boring because that way we might be able to clearly understand it better. All right, so I'm at the grocery store. Here I am in San Francisco, and I go to a grocery store, say in the Castro, right? And my favorite grocery clerk, I'm chatting with her, blah, blah, blah. I've got a pile of groceries. And because it's San Francisco, I have 4 choices in things to put my groceries in. Paper bag, plastic bag, the company logo bag, and that it's like a cloth tote, or the bag I brought. I have 4 choices, but I'm busy talking with the clerk, and maybe I'm a regular there. And the clerk, without asking me, just automatically starts putting it into a paper bag because she remembers I always use paper bags. And then I say, bye, I'll see you next week. And I take my bags and I walk out. No big deal, right? All right. There was an opportunity for consent in there that I either did not notice or chose not to engage in. What was that? The choice of the plastic bags. And the clerk had an opportunity for checking my consent. Hey, I know you usually do paper, but which bags do you want? So she didn't do that. I didn't engage in my consent opportunity, which is to say, whoa, hold up. Actually, I brought my own bag today. Could you put it in this? And she, based upon weeks and weeks and weeks and years of grocery shopping, automatically put it into paper. She could have just said, paper as usual. I could have just said, yeah. Or, no, I brought a bag this time. And then I walk out. All right, so this seems like no big deal, right? Well, maybe it is no big deal. But what if that were a habit of mine for everything? That I did not notice that I had agency and I just let other people make up the decision for me. Or what if although I bought it to bring a grocery bag, bought my bag, to, not waste trees, and because the clerk didn't bother to ask me, I didn't want to be a bother and bring it up. That's like so my mother, right? Okay, I don't know about your folks, but my folks my cultural background is on that chunk of it's Japanese, right? In Japan, they'd be like, oh, well, I don't want to rock the boat, right? So maybe I just didn't want to rock the boat, or maybe somehow I thought that if I spoke up, it would be a bother or I would be pesky. In this case, I probably just didn't even notice, but I let an opportunity for creating consent slip away. Fortunately, it's not a big deal for that occasion. What if that were my habit on everything, of allowing others, or even not noticing that I don't speak up and I let others make decisions? I should probably start noticing that. Before we start taking action, there's a lot that we can do in laying our foundations around consent by noticing how many opportunities for consent creation happens in ordinary life, and what is my habit around engaging in actively participating in consent opportunities that involve me and advocating for myself. So I take the grocery bag. I walk out of the store, la-di-da-di-da-di-da-di-da. And I walk out of the store and a pigeon poops on my head. Did I have an opportunity for creating consent in that with the pigeon? No. No, I didn't. Is it because I surrendered or forfeited that opportunity? No, I had absolutely no control over the situation. Quite literally, shit happened, okay? Quite literally, shit happened. It's not that I missed the consent opportunity. It wasn't that I missed an opportunity for advocating for myself, and there I'm going, damn pigeon! All right, so now I have grocery bag, pigeon poo on my head, and I'm crossing the street. And a person is walking towards me and they are busy looking at their device and not noticing we are walking in the same path and we are about to collide. At this point, do we have an opportunity for creating consent? And will I advocate for myself? Yes. Now, just because the other person is clueless does not mean that I can't wake them up to an opportunity to create consent with me. At that point, I could decide to, I'll duck out of the way. Well, I denied them the opportunity to collaborate with me in that intersection crosswalk dance. I could also be like, hey, yo, asshole, can't you see I'm walking here? Take an eye off of your phone, damn it. I could do that. Or I could do, good morning, hello, and then look up going, oh, hey. And then we walk past each other. In the last one, I advocated for myself. The second one I did too, but honestly, I was a bit of an asshole about it, right? Let's translate that for a dating and bondage situation. All right. So instead of the grocery store, let's say that I am bottoming to a play partner who is casting rope. Let's say we've had several dates before, and let's say that I liked crotch rope. Okay, let's say that that's something I liked, crotch rope and genital play. Yeah. Let's say that that's happened before. All right. Except that today, well, I'm having a herpes outbreak. I actually have herpes, like a quarter of the population does. So it's a thing that happens, So let's say I'm having a herpes outbreak and I'm a little uncomfortable, right? But the scene is happening and there's crotch rope. And then there's whatever it is that we usually do for a little genital touchy. And I don't say anything. So I missed an opportunity for advocating for myself. And I missed an opportunity to create consent together. On the other hand, my partner's side defaulted, just like the grocery clerk, right? Defaulted to not asking for clarity around my boundaries and where my consent is today. So we both missed the opportunity to co-create consent, and my partner forgot to ask me about what my boundaries are today, because it'll be just like last week. You see the parallel with the grocery bags, right? Now, let's say, on the other hand, I said that, look, I got herpes today. No crotch rope, okay? No crotch rope, and like, don't grab my genitals. Is this a permanent limit and boundary? No, it's not. It is a today. So for new folks, I want you to think about this phrase about hard limits, or hard limit for today. Hard limit for today. Because you can have a hard limit that is just for today. So like me with the crotch rope, hard limit for today, no crotch rope, no touching anything in the panty area. Hard limit for today. For me to be able to state that means that I actually need to take a little inventory of myself before. And partner, if I were the partner, and let's say you're the person who's like, no rope in the panty area. Because I want to co-create an agreement of our play today, aka consent, I gotta remember to ask. We may have played hundreds of times, but gotta ask, what's your hard limit for today? So whether you're new topping or new bottoming, here's your new phrase. What are your hard limits for today? Because we tend to think of hard limits as like the big limits, right? Big limits: no animals, no children, no scat, or no breath play ever. Or let's see, what's my forever hard limit? My forever hard limit when I'm topping is, don't call me mistress. I mean, honestly, I hate it. I mean, like, I hate it. I hate it so much I use it as a safe word. Oh my God. But then there's the hard limit for today. I'll give you an example. So I just had my hair done. Yeah. Like the color. I like the color. It's very colorful. And I just had it done like a week ago. If I were to be receiving rope and bottoming and submitting with you, my hard limit for today is, don't touch my hair. Don't get my hair wet. No. I love having my hair grabbed, but I just had the hair done. Do not wreck my hair. And for any of y'all who have fancy hair, you understand. Or it could be like the herpes, right? So today, oh, thank you. Okay. So you know what? In 3 weeks from now, when the color's all faded, okay, you can grab my hair, you can tie up my hair, we can, have like drool and tear and other bodily fluids and lube in my hair, but not today. Hard limits for today. So hard limits for today can also include, when do you need to be home by? When do you need to leave the play date? Maybe the babysitter's wrapping up at a certain time and you'd like to be there, or maybe the kids are coming back by a certain time. That's a hard limit for today. If your knee is feeling kind of wonky today, being on your knees may be a hard limit for today. So thinking in terms of limits and boundaries, don't think about everything that could possibly ever happen. I live in California. Earthquakes could possibly happen. I have a hard limit on earthquakes. I keep telling nature that, but they don't listen. So hard limit for today. Can you all come up with any other ideas of hard limits for today that you might use, or you might know of somebody that you play with might use? It could be things like time, it could be space, it could be, so let's start listing some hard limits for today and think about that, okay? Now, how do you gauge your own interests, limits, and boundaries? It's a huge one, right? Okay. Here's a little advice. I know it's exciting, but don't do everything on the first scene. Seriously, give yourself an opportunity to do a few things well and give yourself space to reflect upon it. Here's a hard and difficult advice. Oftentimes we don't know our limits and boundaries until we come up against them. And coming up against them and learning it can be painful. There are some boundaries that we simply cannot possibly know until we come up against it. I wish there was a way that that was not the truth, but it is. So in that case, not only self-resiliency, but willingness to work it out with the other person if the other person is available. When we come up to our hard limits or boundaries or that which we want out of the scene for now, it's hard. It sucks. It can hurt. It can be shake your confidence. It can feel icky, and for people with trauma in their life, it may bring up things that it may reverberate through you in ways that you don't know. And I wish there was a way that a tool I could give you that would avoid those. There are ways that we can minimize it, but 100% avoiding, we can't. So my advice is start with simple scenes. If anything feels like a maybe, think twice about it, maybe 3, 4 times. Okay. Also, each of us deal differently with coming up against challenges. If you are an individual who, there are people who come up against their personal walls of experience, smash into it at full strength, slide off of whatever it is, boundary that they just came up against, and then stand up, brush themselves off, and go on their merry way. Few. And then there are people who coming up against something upsetting or a newly discovered boundary find it really difficult to go on with things. Neither good nor bad. This is just characteristic. And understand, and this is like an obvious spectrum, right? And it'll vary by life circumstances. But what type are you? Are you a slam up against the wall, brush up and carry on? Or are you somebody who is profoundly impacted by coming up against boundaries and limits? The reason I'm bringing that up is depending on, like if you were my one-on-one student, okay, depending on where you are in dealing with unexpected disasters, I would advise you differently. Okay. So for the people who are like slam up against the wall and figure it out, yeah, go make mistakes. Try a lot of things. But if you are sensitive with deep resonance, take small steps and understand yourself. So take a moment, right? And this can also vary by what's going on in the rest of your life, which can affect how you set boundaries. So let's say I'm usually a slam up against the wall and shake myself out and try new things kind of person, except maybe there's a lot of things going on in my life right now, and I'm feeling particularly vulnerable. This is not about kink. It's like life, work, COVID, family, all sorts of stuff. And honestly, I got all sorts of stuff going on right now in my life, to tell you the truth. So I am probably more a vulnerable individual right now. That's me speaking my truth right now. And whether you are topping or bottoming, it will affect you. And I may not know what my boundaries are. And because I know that in general, I'm kind of feeling tender and fragile, this would be the time for me to not try new things. This would be the time for me to try the things that I know will make me feel good. All right, I'm going to take a moment, look at my questions over here. Hi, great. So somebody gave an example of, I'm PMSing, so my pain tolerance is very low. Hard limit for me today would be stress, painful rope. Tender loving care, Shibari, please. See, that's fantastic. Okay. Here's another little tip. If you're playing with somebody new to you, or somebody who's a little distracted, or somebody who is, here's another one. Let's say I'm bottoming, and I'm new to bottoming, okay? And I'm bottoming to you, and you are new to topping. And I know you've been taking loads of lessons with Shibari study, but you got, Midori's book open, and I can tell as you're about to top me that you have 1,000 little thought squirrels running around in your head. And I know that you're nervous about doing right by me. And I just stated my hard limits for today. But did it really sink in? It is totally okay for me to say, hey, I just wanted to go over my hard limits for today on that. Just in case, I just wanted to make sure, just humor me. Here's my hard limits for today. No crotch rope, please, because I got my herpes. Okay. Oh, also I'm PMSing, so no stress position. Got that? On the topping side, let's say that I'm topping and I'm casting rope on you, and you gave me your hard limit for today, but that was like 20 minutes ago, and now I've been busy putting my ropes and my toys and the vibrator and the lube and turned off my phone and closed the window, and then I'm going through the things that you wanted, and I'm trying to remember the position that I learned and what was that different chest tie, and what the hell was her hard limit? Hey, honey, can you remind me your hard limits for today again? And is there any other new ones that now that you've thought about it? Totally ask for it if you can't remember it. Here's another trick that I do. Sometimes a hard limit is for today is a bodily limit. Yeah. Yes, it is absolutely okay to check limits during play. And guess what? We oftentimes don't remember, because if we're having a good time, oh my God, okay. So I have a friend who has a tweaked shoulder, yeah? And then in the course of playing, we're tumbling around and moving this and that. And I think it's like pleasure-induced temporary dyslexia, or just like whatever, or maybe dyslexia. I can't remember. So you know what I'm going to do? I take a pen and put a X or an unhappy face on the bad part of the body. I literally write down the hard limits on their body about their body. Yep. Yeah, and hey, somebody said, nice, and there any new ones? Good to get that in there. Yes, by asking for, remind me what your hard limits are for today, and is there any others that we missed? It gives the other person a chance to go, yeah, you know what? Yeah, don't grab my hair. Yeah. Yeah, and hey, guess what? If somebody wrote down as if you have ADHD, always check again. But you know, having to hold on to that thought of these are the hard limits, that anyone else's takes away from like the focus on the pleasure. If I'm having to, okay, don't grab the hair, no crotch rope. Don't grab the hair, no crotch rope. Don't grab the hair, and no, what rope was it? And don't grab the what was it? Ah, shit. Write it down. Seriously. If this would help you, yes. And if it's a humiliation play, write down their hard limit, all of it on their body. Okay, humiliation play. I'm going to be teaching a class end of this month on humiliation play somewhere else. So you can check that out. You can also make it a humiliation play or a school scene by saying, yes, well, my dear person who is bottoming, now that you have, this is the school marm scene. I am going to tie your one hand behind your back, and with your other hand, you get to pick the good hand or bad hand, depending on how mean of a teacher you're being. You shall write down your hard limit on this chalkboard over here for me. We just gamified hard limits. Okay, so let's say I'm playing Mean School Marm and Bondage. You know, you can do that. Yes. And you're playing Bart Simpson. And I tie your dominant hand behind your back. A little Japanese poster, yeah. I tie your dominant hand behind your back, and you will write down as legible as possible your hard limits for today. And now, my role-playing Bart Simpson schoolyard bondage bottom, you will now write down your school marm's hard limits. And write these down. Never call Auntie Midori mistress. There you go. Etc. Yeah, gamify it. Why not? You know? And let's face it, we don't always remember stuff. It's okay to write it down. You into play piercing? Write it down and pierce it on them. There you go. So I'm going to go back to, like we were talking about scenes and gamifying your hard limits for today. Okay? And if you're a person bottoming, make sure to ask the person topping what their hard limits are for today. Guess what? I'm going to bet you, dollars to donuts, that most of the people who are casting rope don't get asked that. Oh, you like the role playing as Bart Simpson? Don't have a cow, man. Yeah. Couldn't you see it? Come on. I am so not okay in my head. Welcome to Auntie Midori's brain. All right. For those of you who know my negotiation style, Here's another way to approach talking about consent, in other words, creating joy together, okay? Agreement on joy making, and boundaries and limits. Boundaries and limits are that which takes away from collaborative joy making. Yep. So in my negotiation style, one of the important questions that I ask towards the end of it is, what kind of mood do we want to create today? What kind of mood do we want to go to today? Now, that doesn't seem like it explicitly is about consent or boundaries, but everything weaves in, and let me tell you how. Right. Think of mood as, the kind of mood as, does this crotch rope bring joy? Thank you for that comment. I was waiting for somebody to pick up on that. Yes, this crotch rope does not spark joy in me right now. This crotch rope right now totally is not sparking joy. Okay. Yep. Marie Kondoing BDSM, you bet. Okay. But seriously, it's about putting joy in the middle of it all, right? I don't know. Is it a Japanese thing? See, it's joy, not happiness. Happy is an American thing. Americans are like so obsessed with happy. Joy is a different thing. One can experience joy in suffering, you know. Yep. And if you're not familiar with that concept, welcome to a whole range of Japanese literature. Joy and the beauty of suffering. Anyhow, so what kind of mood do we want to have? So initially, especially if you're new, right? Thinking about limits and boundaries and consent can seem and is intimidating. It is huge. It is huge. All right. So what if instead, let's back into it. Let's think in terms of what kind of mood am I looking? What is the scene about? If I asked you to, hey, tie me up in a hog tie, is that really what I'm asking? Or is what I'm really asking about, I want to feel like you are taking possession of my body, and that I am helpless in your ministrations. Okay. Might be that. And instead of saying that, I'm saying, hog tie me. Naming a position is not naming a mood. Naming a mood and then saying a position might help, that's another thing. Saying, I want to feel like a bound captive and helpless against your ministration. And I'm imagining a hog tie might help me feel that way. It's one way to think about it. All right. So what does this have to do with consent? We are co-creating and collaborating on what we're going to do and thinking of mood. Another way to think of mood is, for those of you who like movies with genre movies. Any of you all like movies? I like movies. Think of it as genre. Comedy versus horror. Okay. So comedy, horror, bodice ripping romance, documentary, history drama. Let's say history drama. Okay. So these are all different moods. Oh, and family drama, tragedy. So how do you want to feel? How do you want to feel? Comedy versus horror. So let me give you an example. If you're in the mood for a comedy, would being scolded and like genuinely scolded and shamed, would that add to a sense of comedy? Let's say it's romantic comedy, right? Maybe not. On the other hand, if you were dealing with suspense, thriller, and horror, maybe a little scary is what you want. Or, okay, I'm going to step it out of a rope bondage a little bit. Okay, I'm going to step it out of rope bondage a bit. And let's think in terms of clowns. Yes, clowns. Because I'm all sorts of wrong in my head. Let's think in terms of clowns. Could say clowns make an appearance in a middle of a comedy scene. Yeah. Could clowns make an appearance in the middle of a scary scene? Yes. But used very differently, yes? Okay. Could there be scenes? Okay, now let's bring it into rope bondage. So now that you have clowns running around in your head. And think in terms of stress positions. Are stress ties going to be appropriate for all kinds of rope scenes or kinds of your personal erotic movie? When I say personal erotic movie, I'm talking about, is it a comedy scene? Is it this, that, and the other, right? Okay. Well, stress scenes are not going to be appropriate for all kinds of moods. So if you're feeling like a tender romantic as your scene, is it a stress position? Well, no. In which case, that would be a boundary for today. Thank you for the comment on the clowns pushing the edge for the scary. See, I bring up the clowns because I can always tell when somebody's paying attention. And I may actually have a clown outfit. Anyhow, so your mood can inform you and your partner about the genre in which you are not going to. It will make decisions easier for both parties, all parties. Maybe you have more than two, lucky you, in your scene. So think in terms of genre and movie genre, mood. I've been talking about mood for years and genre for years. Think in terms of that. And it'll help decision making. Okay. See, I can tell y'all are paying attention the moment I brought up clown. Okay, I am so glad that you are able to state your hard boundary and limit for today, being clowns. Excellent. All right. Mood, clustering our desire, and things that take away from mood. Things that take away from our mood are things outside the boundaries of our scene today. Okay? Think of boundaries and limits as they are not the same thing, but they work well together. Okay, so think of boundary as that which, if we cross into, will take away from the joy of our experience. Limits as the specifics that shall not be engaged to today, for it will create negative consequences. All right. Oh, I'm sorry you have to leave. You're very welcome, and come check out the recording, okay? Great. And like come to my office hours as well. All right. Great. So boundary is that which takes away from your joy and your fun. Right. So here's the thing. If you and I were playing, I would have a boundary on I would have a boundary about talking about work. So let's say, you and I have work that we share together, but we also play together. In the middle of us playing, and maybe I'm looking for like a funny, tender, loving, light, maybe I'm PMSing, okay? And in the middle of it, you ask me, oh, hey, did you follow up with that work proposal? Boundary, okay. On the other hand, limit would be, I've already told you, no touching, no rope, no crotch rope, herpes, right? And you ended up running rope between my legs. Okay, you have stepped into a limit. Now what? Okay, now if I let that go and said nothing, I am not engaging in advocating for myself. And maybe my partner is kind of ADHD and, thought squirrels and giant thought squirrels and forgot, because in the years that we've been playing, it's always been crotch rope. So they totally forgot. All right. Have they committed a boundary and limit violation? No. Were they a dumbass? Yes. Honey, crotch rope out. Because if that stays in, it is going to harm my body, it's going to harm the scene, and I'm going to harm your face. Boundary, limit. In the middle of a scene, can I expand or shrink my boundary? Yeah, I can. That gets a little more sophisticated into knowing yourself. So let's talk about that another time. Okay? Let's see. I've got like half an hour left right now. I just want to check in with folks in the chat room. There's a particular way that I know I talk that seems all over the map, but I hope you will trust me that it all ties in together. Tie in, ha 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 ha. But it does all tie in together. Hi. Okay, just checking in on the questions. And I also want to repeat that the replay will be available for 30 days. All right, let's talk a bit about the difference between limits and boundaries. This is how I perceive it. And there are many other excellent thinkers around limit, consent, and boundary that also have overlapping but different ways of looking at this. My way is not the only way. My way is based, and my perspective is based upon the lessons I've learned. So I'm going to fully encourage you to look at how other thinkers, deep thinkers on this topic, and whether they're into rope or not, think around this topic. In fact, I have some guest presenters lined up for future Consent Dojo episodes, okay? I think you're going to love that. So the way that I look at boundaries and limits. Boundaries is that which takes away from our joy, my joy, our joy of the shared experience. Consent is co-creating an agreement around how to create joy. It is not giving or taking, but it's creating. Limit is that which may cause harm. And harm could be big harm or little harm. My hair, little harm, still harm. Okay. Triggering a previous sexual trauma, big harm. Um, uh, Poking on a bruise I told you not to, probably a little harm. Creating giant marks when I'm appearing in public and I have a giant handprint on my face, big harm. Okay. Boundary, example, it's again that which takes away from the joy, right? Distracts from, minimizes, or it also is the meh, right? If in the middle of a scene, you start talking to me about scheduling our next date, I appreciate that you want to, but you know what? Now you're making me think, bring up my Google Calendar in my head, and that is really, really like fucking with my pleasure boundary. Okay. Boundary. Let's see. Okay. So, truth in my life. My mom died recently. Yeah. So, in the middle of a scene, as you're cuddling me, like maybe it's during the aftercare, and you start talking to me about, asking me about how I'm feeling and with my mom's death. You've now like really like spoiled my fun. Okay. Let's see here. Can we touch on the question from last week about discussion with new partners? All right. All right. Can you give me a specific of what you would like discussion with new partner? I'll be happy to. It's just a big topic. Give me some specifics. New partners. All right. I have an entire negotiation method that I love to share. Okay, somebody said a yuck. All right, let's see. I'm hoping that you're responding to one of my examples. Okay, so discussions with new partners. If you do not know, and please feel free to put in your specifics on your question in the chat, okay? But I'm just going to go off generally on discussion with new partner. In talking to a new partner, okay, how to gauge my own interests, limits, and boundaries. I think we've been talking about that with a series of questions. Yeah. Okay. So let's see here. Somebody asked about discussion with new partner. Okay. Discussion with new partner. I have a feeling you have a specific question on this. So I'm going to encourage you to write that. All right. Oh, thanks for posting the questions from last time. Yay. Okay. So in discussing with a new partner, if you do not fully know what your limits and hard limits are and you're new to this, say so. I am new to this. I don't know how I'll respond to this. I am curious about it. I am interested in it. I don't know what my reactions will be. I think I'll love it, but I might not. State that up front. State that up front that there is a lot that you don't know about yourself. State it up front that that you want to give information and you will give the best you can. Okay? Before going into a scene, have a sense of what kind of mood you want. Pay attention if this new partner is paying attention to you. If they are not, my very opinionated advice is I would not play with them. If they are not paying attention to and actually comprehending what you are saying, this is harsh, but a deeply felt advice. Don't. Just because a person may be awesomely skilled at tying human beings up does not correlate with a person being awesome about communicating, connecting, and giving a damn about another person. It is easy to confuse technical proficiency with human excellence. It is also easy to hide the lack of human excellence behind technical proficiency. If it is that you are fine with excellent technical proficiency and not so much about human excellence, know that going in, and caveat emptor, know that going in, and that you will be your only advocate. Okay. I assume that the comment in here is about the previous comment, I think, because there's an up arrow. Okay. Right. So, and as far as my, I'm gonna let that conversation go because it's going down to too many rabbit holes about my family boundary stuff. See, we're actually having I'm having a boundary around how much to talk about my family, but I am being completely making available my sexual history there. Complicated, isn't it? All right. Hey, so did my talk about boundary and limit make sense? All right. And the last comment, somebody said, wow, incredible words, heart symbol. Thank you. Yeah, I'm big on playing with people with human competence because honestly, you can teach most people how to do excellent human wrapping, gift wrapping humans, aka Shibari, but it is a hell of a lot harder to teach somebody human excellence. So, I would rather play with somebody with amazing human excellence and like little to no rope skills, and then like make them go through all the Shibari study, like with them, yay, than to find somebody who's a shitty human being, but excellent gift wrapping skills. So, boundary versus limit. For those of you who are participating or viewing this later, take a moment and write down what right now, if you were to play, what would be a boundary? In other words, outside of this would distract from my feel good, take away from my joy, boundary, and limit. And if we step into this territory, it will cause harm. So, and keep in mind, that is for today, because tomorrow will be a different day and you will have different boundaries and different limits. And the other person has different boundaries and different limits. And if it helps for you to explain to the other person, because the whole idea of consent, boundary, and limit can be murky, explain it in these words to other persons. Oh, back to playing with new person. All right. So playing with person new to you. Make sure they're paying attention to you. And make sure that you are stating what the mood it is you seek, your boundaries for today, your limits for today. Also, I would share with you to tell the other person, what do you look like and sound like when it's good for you, and what will they see and hear when it's not good. And not good is not, I don't mean bad. It can also be meh, meh, boring, beige. Okay? Boring and beige. Okay? So here's a funny thing. Okay? Watch this face and tell me if it's my happy place or my not happy place. Oh, and context is I'm talking. Is this my happy face or is this my not happy face? Let's see what it says in the text field. I'm going to plug my laptop in while we're talking, okay? You get a great view of my bookshelf, sorry. Aha! I have power! Power, all the power! At least for my laptop. Oh, so hey, all you all know me out there. Yeah, that was my happy face. You know what that face that looked like I just like ate something unpleasant and then constipated simultaneously? That is actually my happy face because I'm doing like detailed close in bondage. And that's my happy face. But if you didn't know that, you would think that I was like unhappy or constipated. Yep. Okay, on the looking and sounding. If the other person doesn't know, here's what will happen. If I asked new person, hey, what do you look like and sound like when it's good for you? What will I see and hear when it's not good for you? And they're like, oh, no, I'll look happy. Well, people look happy differently. That's when I pull out that weird face. Because there are several photos, well, not a lot, because I don't actually have a lot of photos taken when I'm playing. But a couple times when I have had candid photos taken, I'm like, oh my God, do I really look like that? But that's genuinely my happy face, right? When I'm doing detailed, concentrated, and you are my favorite puzzle. So if you don't know what your happy face is, here's what I'm going to ask. If you haven't done kink before, if you haven't done rope before, all right, let's think of maybe like rough sex. What do you think back to your rough sex, and what do you look like when it's good for you then? Okay. Or maybe you do intense sporty things. So in the middle of, say, my boxing workout, I am grunting, I am cursing, I am dragging my ass, and apparently I call that fun. That is my fun face. I'm like grunting. Okay. You know, I'm not waxing poetically, glowing, and having a nice smile. No. And I also will phrase it as, you know, give it the big, best guess possible. And here's some multiple choices you can ask. Do you think your eyes will be open or closed? This is like the eye doctor test, A or B. Open or closed? Are you making noise or not noise? Are you using words, not words? Are you moving a lot, or are you super still? Those are some good places to start with. Give some specifics. Now, what do you look like, sound like? And you can ask yourself those questions too. And if you're not sure, but you might have playmates you can ask, you can say, hey, I've been assigned this weird homework by Midori. What do I look like, sound like when I'm having a good time? What do I look like, sound like when I'm not having a good time? Okay. So if we are new, quite likely that we won't know so much. That is true. But it is worth asking the question because we also may have other data points to gather this from and to make the best guess possible. There's another purpose for this exercise. What do you look like, sound like when it's good for you? And what do you look like, sound like when it's not good for you? I am in that question. The substrate communication that's going on here is I need you to engage in some sort of communication with me that I can hear, read, or understand. That this is also implying that the communication is mutual beyond the verbal. Beyond the verbal. All right? So putting mutuality here. And if the answer is, I don't know, and I ask, what about during rough sex? I don't know. Has anyone ever told you? Oh, I hadn't thought about that. Okay. What's your best guess? Eyes open, eyes closed, sound, no sound, word, no word. You know, give me something. And then if they still say, well, I'll look happy, well, happy looks really different. Give me something. What ends up happening is people start to take inventory of and think and feel back to their happy place and start to do a self-assessment. Now the responsibility falls on both parties. That look like, sound like good, look like, sound like not good. Guess who gets to answer that? And guess who gets to ask that? Into the chat field, please. Everybody. Casting or receiving, topping or bottoming. Okay. So if I were topping, I should tell you that what I look like, sound like when good, and what I look like, sound like when not good. And even if it's my best possible guess, it could be that when it's good for me, I chat nervously about inconsequential things. But if I didn't tell you that, you might think I'm being distracted. All right. What about the what do you look like, sound like when it's not good for you? Here's something I hear all the time, right? And this is from experienced people too. Oh, you'll know it when you see it. No, I won't. I'm also international. I'm multicultural. Look, happy face in Japan, very different than happy face in California, also very different than happy face in New York. Not happy face in New York, California, Japan, also very different. So there's also, yeah, also cross-cultural expression. You'll know it when you see it. Is shirking our responsibility because the look like, sound like when not good for you is an opportunity to start showing you're getting close to the boundary of taking away from my joy. Okay? Now, what I'll hear, other than you'll know it when you see it, is, oh, I'll use safe word. You know what? Now, this is the look like, sound like, not good happens way before safe word. Okay? Look like, sound like. We're talking about look like, sound like, not good, including boring, which, by the way, is, I call beige is a safe word. You know, red, green, yellow. Beige. Mildly tolerable boredom. Yeah. Okay. Moderately tolerable boredom. Why bother with that in scene? We got everyday life and adulting if we want our life in beige, okay? So if I am having a not good, this is heading into my boundary, which is that which takes away from my joy. Maybe it's just mildly annoying. Okay. And if I said I'll safe word, that is as if to say that I will only let you know when potential harm is about to happen, as opposed to giving you an opportunity to change course. Okay. So what do I look like and sound like when it's not good for me if I'm topping? I will start asking a lot of health and safety questions. Are you okay? Are you okay? How's this? Is this comfortable? This, from the outside, looks like I'm being good, responsible, and topping. Responsible top. But what's actually happening is I haven't a clue if you're having a good time, and I feel incredible lack of confidence, and I don't know what to do next. So here's another thing. I have a friend of mine who, when he starts to get to a not good place, he makes a fist. Now, this isn't a safe word. This is him processing negative discomfort. And his fist happens viscerally and bodily well before he's able to form words. In order for a safe word, and safe words are important, but it's like an emergency handbrake, right? It's the emergency handbrake, sometimes for some people, of last resort. So that discomfort or unhappy or beige, the tells. If you're able to tell your person what your look like, sound like, not good is, and if your person is paying attention, this goes both ways, then there's an opportunity to change the course of the scene. All right, let's see what's coming up here. How does one solicit more information from them if they use the lines like "you'll know it when you see it" or "I'll use safe word"? Okay, we've been going through that. So yeah, ask for more explicitness. Remember that my happy face that I showed? I show that so people get an idea that I really look unhappy when I'm happy. I use an example because this is a discourse that doesn't happen a lot. There is this assumption that the look of joy, the outward expression, symptoms and tells of joy and not joy, is somehow universal. And it's not. And use those concrete examples. And I also offer multiple choice. Sometimes if the question is overwhelming, multiple choice. Okay, you'll use safe word. That's great. What's your safe word? Excellent. Now, before we get to the safe word, I want to know, before we get there, are your eyes open? Are your eyes closed? Are you moving? Are you not moving? If you start to use curse words, is that bad? If you start speaking in a foreign language that I don't understand, is this bad? Good. Start to give examples. You can even give ridiculous ones, multiple choice strategies on questions that folks can't wrap their heads around. So, example of, what do you look like, sound like when it's not good for you? Oh, I don't know. You'll know it when you see it. I'll just use my safe word. Don't stop there. And if it's like they're not quite sure, here are some strategies. Hey, make the best guess. When it hasn't been good and regular sex, what do you look like and sound like? Okay, make the best guess. Find adjacent examples. If still that doesn't work, multiple choice of the likely for a lot of people, true for me, and the ridiculous. Example. Okay, so if I'm tying you up and then it's not good for you and you're not sure what you look like, sound like, all right, it could be like this, right? A lot of people, when it's not good for them, will squish up their shoulders and get really body tense. Me, I start to just have regular conversations, just chatting with you. You're tying me up and I'm asking, how was your day? Did you go hiking? That's not a good one. Or maybe when it's not good for you, you start singing operatic arias in French. Oh, that last one? Oh, that's silly, right? Yeah. Okay. So what do you think you do? So the strategy of a lot of people's truth, my truth, and something absurd. Because you throw out the absurd because people go, I am not going to sing opera. The fuck? That is weird. No, you know what? I'm likely going to be like cursing. Ah ha ha. Okay. Oh my goodness. It's 10 minutes till the end time. Okay. I want to assign consent homework again. I am sending this to you again that I want you to pay attention to. You don't have to do anything about it unless you want to. I want you to continue to pay attention to opportunities of consent making that have come across your way, grocery bag example, or anything else. Opportunities that for you to advocate for yourself. That consent is collaborative co-creation for potential joy. Okay, so we are making collaboration, not giving or taking. Okay? And think about as you're heading into your day, what your day's boundaries and your limits are. And when you're heading into play, may be so lucky, think about your boundary and your limit for today for your scene. Yeah. So, and the consent opportunities, because what we're doing with noticing our opportunities to make consent, even something simple like the grocery bag example, is we are building our consent muscle to recognize when we can make this and when other people deny it of us. Because sometimes they're denying us the opportunity to make consent because they weren't paying attention. And sometimes they're denying us the consent making opportunity because they're jerks. So you got some homework. Next month, I have a special guest joining us. And I'm going to let the cat out of the bag on that. Marla Renee Stewart, amazing therapist and organizer of Velvet Lip Production and Sex Down South. Not a rope bondage person, but a deep thinker on the nature of consent, desire, etc. Got a couple minutes here. 6 minutes. And would love your comments, thoughts, questions. And if you're going to try my homework of observing your consent opportunities, give me a hell yeah or a holler out in the chat field. Looking to see if I missed anything. Yeah, it's talking about consent, limits, boundaries. It's not a checklist of how to. It's building a skill set and learning along the way. It's not just a rote lesson. Things do need to be experienced. I got a hell yeah in the room. Thank you very much. And if you are somebody who is, let me rephrase that. We all suck with consent. We all miss the opportunities. We step on somebody's boundaries and limits. We all do that. And let's reflect on how we've done that. Did we do that out of assumption? Did we do that out of malice? Did we step on limits and boundaries and deny opportunities for consent making because we were lazy, because we were overly confident, because we were engaging in exploitation? Maybe we were being mean. I hope you have somebody in your life that you can talk about this in safety and confidence and get it off your chest. And to understand how to be better with it. We all fuck up all the time. It's like that grocery store clerk, right? And that's minor, and it can also be worse too, much worse. I hope you have somebody that you can actually get it off your chest of the small, medium, and large consent violations. It will do your soul good, and it will help you be better at consent making in the future. Got another hell yeah for homework, food for thought. I'll be back next month. We'll tackle this more. So, go and collaborate some joy, yeah?